Welcome back. Let's start by taking a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, where the major story is about why fuel queues persist and spread by marketers. It's saying pump price hits 800 naira in Kano and others, and black marketers sell at over 1,000 naira. Now, this, of course, is a major story that you would find on page 4. Below that, we see Ruto faced Kenya youths in rare X-Space meeting. I mean, even though we don't pray for protest, but it seems, at least if people rather come out, the leaders tend to listen more. And now it's given the president, a thought to, okay, let me converse with the youth one-on-one via space. It's a great thing. You'd find that on page 10. The federal government exempts Gencos and Discos, others from withholding tax. Tinubu re-elected as chairman of ECOWAS. Report on the Samoa Agreement, our position that's at Daily Trust. A position on this matter. You can get the stories on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper this morning, where the major story is talking about the fuel scarcity. Looms as depot raise petrol price to 720 naira per litre. And of course, this is something that Nigerians have been lamenting on. Filling stations raise petrol price as depots now sell 700 per litre, says Ipman. The NNPC officials storm Lagos depots, ask marketers to prioritize Abuja. I don't think we should be at a point where we say, no, Abuja has to be prioritized. The whole country should be a priority. Beside the mast there, the headmast there, it says poverty alleviation. That's the saga. Court orders Buhari's minister to explain 729 billion naira disbursement. A huge money in a time when Nigerians are really hungry. Doesn't make sense. Below the major story, we see budget. Federal government releases 1.2 trillion naira for capital project. ECOWAS, Senegal, Togo, precedent to woo Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Varsities boil again as federal government and ASU meet. Workers protest on Tuesday. Mother-daughter killed in Ogun gas explosion and 2 hospitalized. Below there we have flooding, where the federal government activates state emergency centers. Governors order evacuation of people. A good step on that one. Let's of course move from the Punch newspaper to the Guardian newspaper this morning, where the major story is talking about the revenue expenditure mismatch. States may sack 600,000 employees to implement minimum wage. Okay, that sounds like a threat to the NLC and the TUC. NDLEA arrest couple, recovers 2.1 billion naira worth of drugs in Lagos raid. ECOWAS Tinubu begins new mandate, tax to return breakaway state. Students loan 115 state-owned institutions yet to submit enrolls data. ICPC intercepts 10 billion naira of COVID-19 fund in MDA account and 100 million naira in personal account. NLC insists on 250,000 naira vows to reject the federal government's 62,000 naira minimum wage. Petrol scarcity lingers in Abuja, queues resurface in the state. Concerns as socio-economic pressure heightens suicide mission among the youth. Now, these are the stories that you'd find on the Guardian newspaper. Now, let's just head on to review these pages because we already have our reviewer present. We have Suleiman Ubagaya, CEO Sky Limit Media Group and former Deputy President of Nigerian Guild of Editors. Good morning. It's good to have you. Good morning,
my pleasure.
Always good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk about something that, of course, you are Abuja resident. You feel it as well. The fuel queues persist and spread by marketers. How do we keep finding ourselves here? And the prices, of course, increasing low bit by bit.
Well, it is such a shame, honestly, that we've continued to suffer this same problem time and time again. You know, every year will count maybe up to 5, 6, or even more times when Nigerians have to go under this kind of very embarrassing situation of having to queue for hours to get fuel, not for free, but using their own hard-earned resources. For me, it is such a big shame because Nigeria is a country. It's a country that produces oil and is an oil producer, one of the major oil producers among the top 10. This shouldn't be happening in such a country. The major Energy Marketers Association of Nigeria has attributed the issue to natural causes, citing rain and of course logistical reasons. For me, that is not enough because if you are talking about logistical reasons, moving the product from, let's say, Lagos to other parts of the country, where is Lagos itself having the same problem? Most filling stations in Lagos are empty. I was in Lagos at the end of the week, and I saw how most of the filling stations are empty, and indeed most of the newspapers have reported the same thing. So I don't see how credible that argument could be. And in any case, if you are talking about heavy rainfall, that is making it difficult for ship-to-ship loading of PMS. When you talk about ship, we are talking about the high seas. Does the high sea has anything to do with heavy rainfall? Whether there is heavy rainfall or there is no heavy rainfall, the high sea is always the high sea. It's a very dangerous zone. Our ships should be equipped in such a way and manner that if anything like this happens, it won't disrupt supply. Indeed. So government really needs to be more focused.
And the IPMAN gave excuse of the roads, saying the roads are bad and hence the movement, especially from Lagos to the northern parts of the country.
That is very true. But like I said earlier, how comes Lagos itself is experiencing the same shortage? This thing is largely being directly supplied. I mean, the ship's berth in Lagos, the seas in Lagos, Apapa Ford, Tinkham Ford, and particularly. So why is Lagos itself having the same problem? I do not see any justification, honestly.
Yeah.
Apart from the truth is simply and they should be able to come out and tell us this simple truth. They simply want government to approve an increase of over 1,000 per litre. That is why they are causing all this, and they should come out clean rather than all this cat and mouse game they are engaging in.
I mean, we had callers, and one of our callers spoke saying it seemed to be they're not really telling us exactly what is happening. And then you, of course, are saying that there seemed to be something there.
Yeah, there is something there, honestly. And they should come out. It's not the right way to go.
Yeah.
They should come out clean.
All right. So let's talk about this controversial topic that has moved from last week until this week. And of course, even Daily Trust got a threat from the federal government. We're talking about the report of Samoa agreement. Daily Trust did their findings, of course, but it seemed to let's just keep the peace, and hence there's a position, and they're saying we have our own take on this. Of course, Nigerians, you can grab the Daily Trust newspaper to read it through. But what you've analyzed the situation. What is your take on this?
Well, first of all, let me talk about the Minister of Information, my big brother, Idris. He's one of the most decent persons I've ever known in this journey of life. I met him separately. He's a professional colleague. He's a PR guru, a very successful one at that. But honestly speaking, he got it completely wrong. I mean, his analysis of Daily Trust, he should remember the fact that he is also a media owner, and he was on the other side until recently when he was appointed Minister of Information. I know this thing about telling the truth to power can be very painful. And I was in government. Before then, we were always critical until I was appointed special advisor to the governor of my own state about 20 years ago. And from then onwards, I realized that I started disliking the media, the very profession, I've been, I now said, what happened? We were critical, and now I am part of the system. So I started seeing the media as an adversary. But of course, power is transient. After a few years, it all ended, and I came back to Abuja and became editor of one of the major newspapers in the country. It has been like that. So Minister Idris is also going to finish his tenure, whether sooner or later. And he's going to come back to us in the media. And he should realize, or the government should realize, that Daily Trust is one of the most credible media institutions that has ever been produced in this country. I'm saying this with the highest sense of responsibility. I don't have one naira share in Daily Trust. I've never even worked in the media trust. But I am telling you, it remains the most credible, the most respected media institution in this country. You can't just come out and threaten such an institution. Yeah. It aggregates to virtually threatening democracy, because without credible institutions like the media trust, I am telling you, there won't be this democracy. The Daily Trust has come out to defend this democracy in the interest of the Nigerian public, not in anybody's interest. I remember Malan Kabir Yusuf telling me many, many years ago, that is the chairman of Daily Trust, Media Trust, telling me that even if his own father was abused, and it is true, he won't stop the publication of that abuse in the newspaper, and that is how credible it is. Media Trust is no longer about Kabir Yusuf and the other owners. It is a public trust, for God's sake. It is a public trust, and the reason why some of us could leave what they are doing, at times I will suspend some trip to be able to be here, because I see it as a privilege, to be able to be in this very studio analyzing. I used to do it in some probably older established television stations, this newspaper review of a thing, but then I want to identify with the media trust, because unfortunately for me, I did not have the privilege of serving in media trust. Some of you that are serving should consider yourselves privileged. I'm very serious, honestly speaking. So government should tow with caution. You should treat with caution. This threat about taking the media trust to court, it's like taking all of us to court. It's like taking this democracy to court. There is no reason. I wish the minister had limited his threats, to maybe taking a media trust to the ombudsman, which is okay. If you feel there is something any media organization has done, or any reporter or editor has done, simply report the person to the ombudsman. Yeah. Let the case be educated at that level. There should never be a threat, because you see, if this establishment turns against the tinubu administration, it will be seriously problematic. So the minister is my big brother, like I said. He is someone I immensely respect. Yeah. I want him to please withdraw this threat. I'm happy the media trust has acknowledged some of the issues. And it says a lot about the integrity of this organization, the media trust, that it admits that, some of its reportage could be wrong. It's a human institution. It can never be perfect, but the aspect of threat is what I heavily disagree with. Indeed. And I am going to tell the minister directly, with all due respect to him, that, Oga, I think you got it wrong here.
Because we need to have at least a freedom of expression, for journalists, that are the link between the government and the people.
Exactly.
All right. So
because you see one other thing. I'm sorry. Yeah. One other thing I realized is that, and this is a very simple example. When Malam Ibrahim Shekaru became the governor of Kano State in 2003, you remember before then, Kano State used to be very volatile. Whenever there was an issue, people will go to the street and start attacking non-residents, especially non-Muslims. But when Malam Shekaru became the governor of Kano State, he allowed this thing called freedom of expression. People will go to a radio station that was newly established then and even abuse him, and he wouldn't order for their arrest. So because of that, they were dissipating their anger, in a public forum, and that was giving them satisfaction. So it resulted in peace. Yeah. So you see, when you constrict the space and make it impossible for people to express themselves, then you are inadvertently asking them to express themselves on the street. So it's better, it's in the government's interest, I support this government, it's in the government's interest, honestly, to allow the people to express themselves using this public trust. Media trust is no longer about the owners, like I said. It's a public institution, it's a public trust. I don't think any of the owners has control over this media organization, honestly, because they have allowed it to be run by the public. So it's owned by us.
Of course.
Even though millions of us do not even invest 1 naira in media trust, but it's owned by us. You know, if I publish an article, it will be published in as much as it is true.
Masses.
You know, so
all right, we would have to wait and see what the federal government reply would be on the media trust group thoughts. So moving on to another issue affecting Nigerians, say the state may sack. Now, this is an analysis and revenue expenditure mismatch based on, of course, there's been concerns of the internal generated revenue of each state, saying that it might sack about 600,000 employees to implement minimum wage. And this seemed to be the controversy that is keeping, you know, the tripartite committee from making the final decisions on the minimum wage. What is your take on this?
Well, to be very honest, there is no reason for any strata of government, whether at the local government, state or federal, to even contemplate sacking its workforce to be able to accommodate the minimum wage. Honestly speaking, that is the most, I'm sorry to use the word, irresponsible and insensitive statement that I can remember. Honestly, is very insulting. We've seen wastages at the federal, at the state, and even at the local government levels. Terrible wastages, you know. So why don't you simply reduce the cost of governance, for God's sake? I remember the tinubu administration talking about reducing the cost of governance, but I'm not sure it has much its words with action. You know, action is what we need. Government should be able to reduce the cost of governance. Let the governors reduce the retinue of aid that follow them to states, or whenever they are traveling abroad. You know, even feeding the security board. Most of these governors receive money in some 500 million, some 1 billion, or even more in the name of security board. And nobody can question that. I mean, and the law provides that because it is sensitive in nature, it shouldn't even be fraud or questioned. So let them reduce those things, you know, and generally reduce the cost of governance and provide for the less privileged. That's the way to go, honestly.
Because we see the NLC insisting on getting the 250,000, and the government has been silent on, you know, what course of action to take. But are we hoping for positive, you know, decision at the earliest?
Well, you see, the labor itself needs to, you know, reach a middle ground. I mean, it shouldn't insist that it has to be 250,000, because you see, there is the implication of high inflation occurring. You know, the rate of inflation is about 34% now. I think 38.9 or thereabouts percent, and food inflation officially is put at 40%. But we know, you and I know, because you go to the market, I go to the market, we know that in most instances, food inflation is even more than 1,000% as far as some products are concerned. So once you, you know, of course, 250,000 is not much, but then given the realities of our economy, I think they should take it a little bit gradual. I'm so sorry, I'm not a worker, so
no,
maybe
I think the NLC are just insisting because they seem to not get a commitment from the government. At least there should be, you know, a table to return to for that negotiation. But yeah, let's move on to at least some good news of the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, getting re-elected as the chairman of ECOWAS. And of course, they reiterated their concerns of the three countries that exited the ECOWAS and making, you know, promise and saying we would try to bring them back. What is your take on that?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate President Tinubu and indeed Nigeria and Nigerians for this milestone. You know, it says a lot about the confidence that other heads of state and government within the ECOWAS bloc have in Nigeria and its leadership. The president should do more. Unfortunately, the first time he was elected in July last year, he was a rookie. I'm sorry to use the word. He just came in newly. He was barely 2 months old. And of course, we saw so many errors happening, you know, especially the issue of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. Unfortunately, because our president was rather inexperienced, you know, in governing a diverse society like Nigeria, and of course, ECOWAS, you know, governing other countries. He got a few of his decisions wrong, like this overstretching of an argument. You know, I always believe it is no good to overstretch an argument. When this country's staged military coup, it should have been, the approach should have been a carrot and stick kind of, you know, but unfortunately we insisted in the stick, and thereby alienating them, making them suffer all kinds of deprivations. Food became, there was food shortage, there was a shortage of medicine, all sort of essentials. And the people now said, because they have already been pushed to the wall, they now said, okay, if these are our own brothers, because of military coup, want to kill us, why don't we pull out and establish our own? Of course, that removes a lot from the tinubu leadership of ECOWAS, because it's an institution that is set up to promote democracy and promote integration. And it has done a lot, honestly speaking, in spite of its failings. I remember the last time I traveled to Senegal, it was like traveling to Kaduna or Lagos. You know, I simply landed at the airport, presented my passport, and I was allowed in without any hassle. So these are some of the, some of the benefits of ECOWAS. Economic integration, political, social integration. There have been intermarriages, you know, between within the bloc. There have been so many businesses. I saw in Nigeria, I was looking for an African restaurant, and then I ended up getting a Nigerian restaurant.
Of course, it would be out there, and it's really good. Even though we've seen the AES, you know, having their own meeting on Saturday, but we hope that at least there would be a room for them to come back to the ECOWAS. We don't want to say there should be at least some collaboration between them, but then we're still hopeful that they would come back, considering the ECOWAS is saying, you know, we're still the 15-member state. Yeah,
I think the President Tinubu has done what I will call a masterstroke, appointing the Senegalese president and the Togolese president to serve as mediators, special envoys.
Indeed, because they are francophone.
Yeah,
countries.
They are friends of these three countries, and the three countries will not see them as antagonistic. So that's the right thing to do, and I am so happy that he has not allowed ego to take the better part of him. You know, some other leaders may have insisted in their wrong position. Yeah. But it's to the credit of President Tinubu that he has not allowed.
He's doing well, so he deserved the re-election.
Yeah, he deserves the re-election.
All right, I mean, because of time, of course, we have to put a stop to this program. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, every Monday to dissect the front pages. Suleiman Obagaya, appreciate you.
It's my pleasure always. Thank you.
And with that, of course, we have come to the end of Daybreak on Trust TV. Please do stick around. At the top of the hour, Emmanuel Fashemi will bring you 360 Sport. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Do have a lovely week.